me, Phil. Welcome back to the Phil Vischer podcast. I am here with Sky Jitani.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Sky.
Unshaved Sky Jitani.
Yeah, fuzzy Sky.
What?
Fuzzy Sky.
Fuzzy Sky.
You're fuzzy.
It's been 2 days.
2 days up for your head, too?
Yeah, I do it all in one
Really?
thing.
Do you just close your eyes and just...
I close my eyes and just spray shaving cream all over me.
It's too bad you can't stick your
really
head in
cool.
something like
Yeah.
that'll just do it for you, and you stick it in and then pull it out.
Some laser device.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Or
Someone
a
wants to-
Flowbee set on very, very short. That just,
I bet there's some kind of acidic solution you could just dunk yourself into.
And you'd come
just
out like the Joker.
Singe off your hair.
You'd be a supervillain.
Maybe that's
you
how
did
they
that.
make hairless chihuahuas. They just dip them into that.
Yeah, they just dunk them.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a little tuft on top where they hang on to them, like Achilles.
Like a Hare Krishna.
Like Hare Krishna Achilles. And Christian Taylor,
Hey, Phil. Hi, everybody.
you are patriotic
You
today.
are star-spangled.
I am. There's
and
a
there's
reason.
a story, but I'm going to do the theme song. And in honor of Christian going to France, I'm going to do the theme song Frenchy.
Awesome.
Hello is a podcast. What do you know? Hello is a podcast. And we've got video. Hello is a podcast. No landing here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. We'll talk to Sky.
Sky?
Yeah. I don't know where that came from. And Christian too.
Yes.
Christian.
Oui.
And we got no guest, no here, but she's back from France for you. Vive la France! Hey, it's the podcast. What do you love? So listen here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer podcast starts right here.
You go really borderline between French and Russian.
I know.
there.
Yeah. Or French and something.
Well, they fought a lot, the Franco-Russian
Right.
stuff. That was actually Prussian.
I have to make a confession.
Prussian. What?
So on the way over to France,
Yeah.
I watched something for the very first time, which will probably appall you.
Wait, let's guess. VeggieTales.
What's in the Bible?
Close.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Jonah.
On the way over?
Monty Python.
What?
Which one?
Which what?
The Holy
The
Grail?
Holy Grail.
You'd never seen the Holy Grail?
I had never
Oh,
seen
my
that.
goodness.
Bring out your dead. Bring
Why
out the
do you think you'd never seen that?
I've no
'Cause your
idea.
upbringing was so conservative?
Was this
No,
featured
no.
on the flight?
No.
Okay.
Jacob, my 18-year-old, said, "Hey, let's watch Monty Python." I said, "I've never seen that." He said, "What?"
Okay.
And so I thought, I guess I better watch it.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah, it is pretty funny.
That's great preparation for France,
But
too.
well, it was, and it finally made me understand all of your humor from the VeggieTales movies.
Yeah, we did that. The Holy Grail did influence VeggieTales pretty significantly. So, France, you were there for how long?
I was there for 6 days, but it felt like a month. It was
Yeah,
an
'cause it was
intense,
terrible?
amazing time. It was amazing.
Okay,
Absolutely
well, that usually
amazing.
makes things go faster when they're amazing. They go faster.
It was so intense. It was like we landed and we were carried by this wave of things that didn't stop till we left. And there was so much packed in that, honestly, when I tell you the story, you'll be like, oh my gosh, were you there a month?
Oh, okay.
That's kind of the way it went.
Okay, I see. And you were there. Explain why you were there.
I was there because my oldest son, who's 25, was picked to go to Normandy because they have these ginormous D-Day celebrations over there. Did you guys know this?
D-Day. Yeah, I didn't know
That
that
they
they're that big, but I know they.
This
do
was
things.
like any patriotic anything you've ever seen on steroids.
And your son is in the military. That needs to, for those who don't know.
Yes, sorry, my son is
He
in the
wasn't just
military.
randomly selected as an American to...
Right.
That is true. He
Right.
was part of 16 guys from the 101st. So if you know your history, the 82nd Airborne and the 101st and a few other units were the ones that were heavily participating in D-Day.
Okay.
And so he's in the 101st, and so they always send
The
representatives.
fighting 101st.
The Screaming Eagles.
Oh.
Screaming Eagles. And originally, the 101st were the paratroopers.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have converted because parachuting is not very effective because you can't determine where you're going to go.
Right. It's so hard to steer.
It's impossible to steer. And so they do air
Now
assault.
they go in by hot air balloon.
Nope.
Because it's much easier to steer.
Nope. They go in by helicopter and fast rope out of them.
Oh, okay.
So the
Oh,
helicopters
that's
hover.
like what the SEAL team did.
Yeah.
Yeah, SEAL Team 6.
Right.
SEAL Team 6. Wada!
So they all do that. That's what the 101st does now. But so they went over there to be part of this celebration, and I had no idea what to expect.
Did they get dropped in from helicopters?
They rode the big transports that they used to ride in, they put them all in there, and they did not jump out. They landed at Cherbourg, which is like on the sea by the English Channel.
Okay.
And then they just right away jumped into these ceremonies that they had to participate in. And what I learned once I got there and figured out how to drive a car that I'd never seen before and drive on these roads.
Wait.
with
But
signs.
they drive the same side of the road we do.
They drive on the same side, but their road signs are all in French, and they.
Well, that's so obnoxious. Why would they do that?
I don't know, it's silly of them, but they're all in French, and they're these weird streets. You know what it's like?
No.
This is what I felt like, especially in Paris. I felt like I was in Washington, D.C., and I finally figured out why.
Because Washington, D.C. was designed by a Frenchman.
L'Enfant.
Yeah.
He designed, and so
that's why all the signs in Washington, D.C. are in French.
And all the streets are at irregular angles.
Yeah, it's nuts. So anyway,
European.
It was very, very French. And so we spent a day in Paris, and we did the Eiffel Tower, going all the way up.
Do you know there's a rocket ship underneath it?
It takes you to Tomorrowland.
Takes you to Tomorrowland.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
We didn't find that out.
Yeah, I don't know. They should be promoting that. They should be selling T-shirts. Or they should do a tour the rocket ship underneath the Eiffel Tower. It would be huge.
When I was 13, I didn't get lost at the Eiffel Tower, but everyone else did. And
What does that?
Yeah.
So
you were wandering off having deep
You were like
theological
Jesus?
thoughts
You were
about
like
yourself.
Jesus?
I was about my father's business.
You were writing a devotional in your head.
converting people?
Thinking, this
So,
gives me a great idea.
I was with my
for a
family.
devotional.
And they were taking the elevator all the way up to the top, and I thought I wanted to do more of the stairs because kind of go through the middle of the thing. And so we kind of got separated, and it was sunset, evening time, and then we were supposed to meet back at some bus somewhere or other. And I got back to the bus time, and then my mom flipped out because she couldn't find me, and so she's using her what she calls dog whistle. This is the whistle she would use to call the dog in from outside. And so she's going around underneath the Eiffel Tower whistling, trying to find me, and I'm sitting in the bus the whole time. But
Did the whole tower start to vibrate with the tone of her whistle?
It's ironic that you say that. That's the way Jacob whistled to me the entire time we were in France. If I
Really?
went the wrong direction or if we were separated, he'd go whoosh, like that, and I knew right away it was him.
Wow. Now that's
It worked
your
on
high,
me.
you're just graduated from high school,
Yes.
son, not you're in the army.
That's Hunter. So Hunter's the 25-year-old and Jacob's the 18-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Paris.
Yeah.
So we were in Paris, and we did the Eiffel Tower and then the river cruise on the Seine. And the most interesting story about our first day in Paris was that we were at this restaurant, and in Paris, they sit you like basically at the table of another person. Well, they sat us down.
they don't have that interpersonal space.
There's no
thing.
space.
That is so rude.
That's an American thing.
No
It's like
space.
Club Med. Have you ever taken your kids to Club Med?
No.
Yeah, it's communal seating. They sit you. It's all tables of 8,
Oh,
and
so
they fill them up. So if you're a party of 2, you're with a party of 6 at a table of 8.
and all of a sudden
They're
you're
like,
instant friends.
This must be a mistake. Me, this must be a mistake. You didn't mean to sit us with these strangers. Oh no, we did,
So-
because it's kind of French.
Yes.
Well, it's Mediterranean, Club
Yeah.
Med.
Yeah.
It's very French. So
And they hand you a Speedo, say, go sun yourself.
I hope they don't do that.
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, we sat next to this man and woman.
Did they smell?
No, but the first bathroom that I went into,
Yeah.
I about choked. This woman came out, and I thought, wow, what was that? They don't wear deodorant.
They don't shave their pits either.
I didn't notice that, but
So
boy,
did you use any of the pay bathrooms on like the stalls in the
Yes.
street where you put the money in and the door closes?
Well,
and
Jacob
when
did.
your time's up, the door will open automatically.
yes, yeah.
Don't you love that?
Crazy.
That's great.
That's a motivator.
So don't bring a magazine. For sure, man.
You know what was weird about the bathrooms? Did you notice, like, you go into the bathrooms and the men and women share the common wash part, where you wash your hands and stuff. And then you have to go into the, toilet section. But it was so disconcerting for me because here these men are at the sink washing their hands. And that was a little strange. But back to the table in the restaurant.
Yes.
So we sit next to this man and woman, and right away, one is French and the other isn't. So their common language is English. Oh. So we are like, they're as close to us as you are.
Oh.
The lingua franca
And
was
if you're
actually
just listening
English.
to this podcast, we're close.
We are very close, yeah. So the guy who's 35 years old, starts to break up with this beautiful French, 20-something girl and
At your table?
at our table. And Jacob is looking at me with these incredibly ginormous eyes.
And is he thinking, she's available?
He's thinking, he's an idiot. And he gets his phone and he starts texting me. So every line this guy was giving her, he's like, this is what he means. He's just trying to get her to do X, Y, Z. And you know what? I'm going to get my shoe and bash him on the head. And
So awkward to have to break up with your girlfriend at a table with strangers.
it
Right.
was, well,
Americans.
Yeah.
well, the funny thing
loud
was,
Americans.
they were sitting here facing the street. We were at their back. So it wasn't
Oh,
like we were
okay.
next to each other.
Okay, you were right
But
behind
he
him.
was breaking up with her because she was a Christian and a virgin.
What?
That is why he was breaking up with her.
He said that, huh?
He basically said, you would bring me
Wow.
over, you wouldn't sleep with me, and so Jacob's righteous indignation got
Went
the better
off
of
the
him. It was off the charts, and he said, I'm going to say something. And I said, no, you could not do this.
That's a good breakup, though. That's probably a breakup that
Yeah.
she...
She was sitting there
want,
going,
right?
what? Explain. She just didn't know. And he was saying, I'm really ready to get married, and I need somebody who's serious about this and whatever.
And he's 35 and she was 20.
She was younger, yeah. So Jacob decides that he's going to write her a note. And I get up and I'm like, I'm getting out of here. So I left and I went across the street and decided I was going to film this. So he's on Google trying to figure out how to say "you are very beautiful" in French. And he writes "you are very beautiful" on a coaster.
Yeah.
And as he gets up to leave,
Was that the extent of the note?
that was the extent of the note.
All right.
He gets up to leave.
In parentheses, he said, for a virgin.
A religious version.
Right.
Gets up to leave. He goes over to her, hands her the coaster, and leaves. And walks back over to the street to me, and he said, I just wanted her night to end on a good note.
Of being hit on by an American.
Teenager.
No, he was just wanting to make her feel happy, which I thought was very sweet.
Well, she had a great story to tell when she went home that night.
Exactly. This guy was ditching me, and anyway.
And this American was hitting on me.
Right.
Okay.
Good way to end the night. So that was our first day in Paris.
Great. That was awesome.
That was awesome. Along with playing bocce ball on the Trocadero with a bunch of 70-something gentlemen. That was a really big highlight.
Okay. Bocce on the Trocadero.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next day we go to Normandy.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to meet Hunter, and he had no idea where he was. We didn't know where we were going. He was at some parachute drop somewhere in Cherbourg. Or no, Caratan. So we get to Caratan, and we don't know where we're going, but we see these American Jeeps. And we're like, well, we'll just follow them. Certainly they're going to the parachute drop. They have their flags. All of a sudden, they pull off the side of the road to check a map or something. And I said, Jacob, go make sure they're going to go to this parachute drop. And he comes back to the car, and he said, they don't speak English. And I'm like, he's like, they're all French.
They're
and
spies, they're imposters.
I said, what? Turns out that this town and all the other ones like it right on this northern coast of France spend their year collecting and maintaining Jeeps, troop transport trucks, bicycles, motorcycles, and anything you could possibly imagine. Tents and utensils, and
So they're all recreators.
they're all recreators, and they spend thousands of dollars on this 2-week period of time.
Well, it's their big tourist
Right.
time, right? That's the big
but
attraction.
there weren't Americans there.
You were there.
It was, well, I was there for a
You were
specific
there.
reason, but it was mostly French people from that area. And they bring over these military guys. Well, I had no idea what they were going to be doing, but they basically bring over the American soldiers as celebrities. So they were there to take pictures with the French people and sign autographs and march in parades and be at ceremonies.
So these aren't French guys reenacting American soldier. They are.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, it was Memorial Day, and there was a little parade here in Wheaton, as there always is. And at one point, there were, I think it was World War I reenactment soldiers with World War I, like, Jeeps and stuff like
Right.
that. And they walked down the street, and everyone stands up and starts cheering them. I'm like, they're not actual World War I veterans. These are
We're cheering that they're doing a good job at reenacting.
it was just kind of weird.
Well, it's an emotional thing.
I mean, obviously, I don't.
Clearly.
It was like.
So you were not cheering.
So
for
are
them.
these French?
Did you boo? Did you actually?
No, I did not boo.
Okay.
But so these French guys masquerading as American World War II liberators, do they get like? Are they?
Do they sign autographs?
Are they doing this because they're getting some appreciation for something they never did?
No, it's really out of an amazing amount of thanks and gratitude. It blew me away how grateful they are to this day. You know, they love Americans. And people were wanting to take their picture with Jacob and I. I mean, they're so incredibly grateful. And so not only do the French people dress up, there were people from England coming over there dressed up as American soldiers in their Jeeps.
Well, there were
that
a lot of
over.
English who
Right,
came in that invasion also.
Right, but you would think that they would dress up as English soldiers.
Or they just dress like English.
Which they didn't. They all dressed up like American soldiers. And to top it all
I
off,
guess we were the most popular soldiers at the ball.
clearly, the girls there dressed up as in 1940s everything. So they're all look like the Andrews sisters or any other pinup girl from that time that you can imagine. So the whole weekend, we felt like we were transported back in time.
1940s.
In the 1940s.
So who played the Nazis then?
Were there any
They
Nazis
actually 5 years ago started inviting the German soldiers
to come play the Nazis?
to come back.
So they can be booed. Boo!
We need somebody in that pillbox. Get the Germans over here.
No, it was a weird transition, and they still feel a little bit uncomfortable, but now
Yeah.
they're starting to come because they're trying to bridge that relationship gap.
Okay.
And so there's not a lot of negative stuff there's nothing negative. It's all positive
All
about
good.
these
It's all
people
good.
being
There
liberated.
was,
Good job, everyone. Good job, Germans. Good job, Americans.
Way to bury the hatchet.
Well, they would tell you, actually, this one woman, the scarf, the story of the scarf is a fascinating one.
She's wearing a American flag scarf.
I am.
Yeah.
And most people that were not reenactors, that were just French people, had on some sort of American something. And when we were the very first day in Caratan at the ceremony, this woman walked up and said to Hunter, "Can I take a picture with you?" And we said yes. And she said, "This jacket was given to my mother in 1944 by an American paratrooper." And she then brought her mother over and introduced us to her mom, who happened to be the mascot of the American soldiers in 1944, in that
They had a woman as a mascot?
she was like a 5-year-old. She was like a little kid. And
But even that, isn't it usually like a dog?
I don't know. Apparently, it was Danny. And her mother had taken parachutes from the paratroopers and made her an American flag dress. And so, in the very first commemorative ceremony, because all these American soldiers had sort of adopted her as this little girl, she wore this American flag dress in these big ceremonies and stood there delivering flowers or whatever. So every ceremony from then, she was involved in. And she has collected this book, this thick leather book of pictures of her with Omar Bradley and Patton and Charles de Gaulle. And, you know, I don't know if you know, like The Longest Day, the story of it, where the paratrooper, Jean Steele, was caught on the steeple of the church in St. Mary Glees. She has pictures with that guy. So she was so excited to meet us, she gave me this scarf and then took us to the Utah Museum and gave us a tour where at the end is her and her dress.
Whoa.
Pictures of her and her dress. And we spent the whole weekend with them and her family, and they took us around to all these different sites and told us these inside stories. So by the end of the time,
Did they speak English?
they did,
Okay.
but roughly.
Okay.
By the end of the 3 days that we were there, Jacob looked at me and said, "We were in Normandy, and we never went to Omaha Beach or any of the other ones or any of the other museums. But this family told us this, you know, first version story. And the World War II vets that we were with, that were at every ceremony we did, told powerful stories of how they survived. And so it was living history that we got to experience, which was incredibly powerful. And if you've never heard of it or done it, put it on your bucket list. It is a powerful thing.
A video I saw about a week ago that somebody created that illustrates how many people died in World War II from different countries and soldiers in different battles. And it does it all graphically and visually. And it's just shocking when you watch it. I just found it again. It's called The Fallen of World War II. You've got to watch that.
That sounds interesting.
And one of the things that puts in perspective is, number one, how horrible D-Day was, particularly for Americans, and how many soldiers died that day. But I think overall, America lost about 400,000 soldiers in World War II. The Soviet Union, over 8 million soldiers. And then another about 8 or 9 million civilians. And when you look at the death toll to the Soviets, it just dwarfs everyone else by comparison. And then they compare both military and civilian casualties of World War II against other conflicts in world history, and then all the conflicts of the 20th century since then. And again, it was the most catastrophic death toll in human history. It was that one war. And nothing in the 20th century after it even came close. So it was all about perspective and understanding how horrible that conflict was.
And when you go there, like Jacob was putting his hands in bullet pockmarks in churches that are still there. You know, we actually, for my husband, who is a history major, found an American flag that was, you know, sort of saved from that time period and it's tattered and stuff like that. Those, you can still purchase stuff from that time period. And so it's, and those veterans are dying out and the stories are dying out. And that's why, you know, now's the time to go, I think. But before we move on, I have presents to give you.
Presents?
Yeah. So on the way, we had one more day in Paris. And I got to Jacob, his knee, he tore his Achilles or his ACL, so it was shot. He said, I'm not doing anything. I walked around by myself and discovered.
Did you wear that scarf?
I did not, but I went scarf shopping, and now I wear a scarf every day because that's what the French do.
Oh.
Oui, oui.
Okay.
Did you get us scarves?
I didn't get you scarves. I didn't get you
I ain't wearing a
scarves.
scarf.
Yeah, I'm not a
Especially in
scarf.
June.
But you
But
could
this-
wrap around your head.
Yeah, but then I'd be mistaken for
This
a
gift.
Sikh or something.
But that would give you
Oh,
opportunity
that would be scary.
to witness.
Okay, so this gift is not just for you. It's for you and your wives.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh.
So
Is it a fabulous cash prize?
it is not a fabulous cash prize, and it probably won't be very, you know, meaningful to you, but I thought it was cool. So
Come on, it's meaningful.
these are the locks
I know
of
what they,
love.
I know what they are.
Oh, yeah. From the bridges.
From the bridges, and
Didn't they take all those off?
Yes.
this is being outlawed,
Yes,
but people
they're
are not
dismantling
complying, and they're also popping up in other bridges, and so you have to take your wife to Paris.
We've already gone to Paris.
Did you put a lock of love?
No.
Right. So you have to go soon, and you have to lock your love and throw away the key in the Seine.
Could I do it in the Fox River in Geneva?
I guess you could. You could start a new tradition, but she might enjoy Paris better.
Yeah, she might. That's a lot.
Anyway, I thought
Thank
about
you.
getting you Eiffel Towers, but those are just, you know.
You can get that. You can get that
Everybody
at
does
Epcot.
that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's what you should do. Is you should take Lisa to Epcot and stick this on the bridge by Paris, by
Boy,
France.
would that annoy the Walt Disney Company.
Yeah. What are they going to do?
Well,
You've
make
given
it more
them-
realistic.
Think how much money you've given
Actually, we went all the way up to the 3rd floor of the Eiffel Tower, and they've started putting locks up there as well.
Oh man,
That's gonna be
That's
bad.
going to bring down the tower.
It would bring down the
That's-
tower. So anyway,
Okay.
that's my story.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Glad
Thanks for
you're here.
listening.
We're glad you're back.
Me too.
Can I share my kind of lengthy
Yes.
story about going to Arkansas last week? And
When did you go to
I
Arkansas?
went to Arkansas.
Where'd you
You
go?
went to California.
And I went to California.
They're right next to each other.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I don't have anything meaningful to share.
Oh, where were you in Arkansas?
Why
You
were
know,
you
my
not-
family's down there.
I was in Bentonville.
Oh, I know where that
Did you
is.
go to Walmart headquarters?
No, but I went to.
Oh, did you go to John Brown?
No, I'm going back there in September.
Well, why were you in Bentonville?
I was meeting with a guy.
Oh,
about,
yeah. You
know,
had a meeting with a marketing guy who
marketing
used to
guy.
work for Walmart.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it was really nice. It's a very nice town.
Did you two lock anything on any bridges to honor
No.
your meeting?
But we stayed in this very funky hotel where we had our all-day meeting called 21C. It's like a museum hotel.
21C is the hotel.
Yeah, like 21st century.
Oh.
21C.
Oh, right. That's
But
cool.
it's very artsy-fartsy.
That's really cool. Okay.
like odd.
Yeah.
Especially, and I know you're thinking it and not saying it.
What?
Especially in the South.
Oh,
Well, no, it was very modern. It was.
Oh,
it was.
don't
it was
even.
I was
saw that in
very.
his
I
eyes.
like. If anyone listening in Bentonville or the Northwest Arkansas area, beautiful little airport. Hard to get to, but beautiful little airport, and it's a nice town.
My family
It's kind
is
of the Walmart airport.
I know it is.
in Centerville, Center Ridge. Did you ever see Center Ridge?
Center is in Arkansas.
Yes, Center Ridge is in Arkansas, west of Little
Is
Rock.
it Little Rock in Arkansas?
Yes, it's on the eastern
Isn't that
side.
where the Clintons are from?
Yes, it is.
I should have, said I'm a Yankee and I was your liberator 150 years ago and seen if they would have welcomed
Given you
me
a party?
into their homes.
I don't think so. Okay. Did anyone see Jurassic World over the weekend?
No.
No, I was too busy watching Monty Python. I'm still catching up.
Yeah, I didn't see it either.
I want to see
broken like
Jurassic
every
World,
record.
though.
I know. 510.
Did you see it?
No.
I read one
didn't.
review where some feminists were really upset about it.
Is that a bad sign or a good sign?
Well,
yeah,
obviously it didn't deter Americans from going
I know.
to see it.
$510 million worldwide in one weekend. Most of any
It's because
film
of Chris Pratt.
ever.
Yeah,
You
He's
think-
so
I
cute.
can't figure it out.
a golden
I
boy.
can't
Funny.
figure it out because we've already seen Jurassic Park. It's what?
But not with Chris Pratt.
Not with Chris Pratt. And it's a new generation. Like the last time they did Jurassic Park, it was
Yeah.
for, now there's a whole crop of new kids.
But why did it appeal so much?
I have a theory.
Just because we love is it like Shark Week on the Discovery
Yes.
Channel? We
I
just
think
love dinosaurs.
I think it's more than that.
You do?
Yeah. I think the first Jurassic Park film came out in 1993. So what is it, 22 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
See what I mean? Whole generation.
I was in high school.
Okay.
And I think there was a generation of kids
that was really
that was a really big
watershed
Yes.
movie.
And so they're now adults.
It's their Star Wars.
It's
of
their Star Wars.
Like
a little
early-
bit.
late junior high, early high school.
Right. I think there was this nostalgia that this was like such a memorable event of my childhood kind
Yeah.
of movie, and now they get to go back, and it's I haven't seen the movie, but somebody said it follows the beats and the plot points almost exactly of the original movie. They've just
Okay.
changed it a little bit.
So it's like a J.J. Abrams retelling.
Yeah, but now it's of course with 21st century
With more CG.
faster cuts, more CG.
I was telling someone that I thought it would have been cooler if they had done like a hipster retro rebirth of Jurassic Park and done it all with puppets and animatronics.
You would have thought
and
that.
or
no
like
CG.
yarn animals.
Yeah, and it'd be like going back to vinyl. I want to go back
Yeah.
to vinyl. I don't want computers in this. I want it in the way
How
that
about we just go back and
real
resurrect, make real dinosaurs?
Real dinosaurs. And
And-
like Mad Max, we're going to shoot everything in camera. If we can't make this happen in camera, it's just not going to happen. That's what I think they should do. Okay. The only thing I wanted to point out, which I think is interesting and maybe people aren't thinking about it enough, is what it did in China over the weekend.
What did it do in China?
Did 100 million in China. So of the 500 million, 100 million of that, it was in 66 countries.
Well, proportionately, based on population,
yes,
that makes
but
sense.
20 years ago,
Right.
there
Right.
just wasn't that market in China because there wasn't the middle class. It shows the middle class. It shows how many cities they've built. It shows how many theaters they've built. But here's the bigger thing now. Okay, here's the bigger thing. China, so that's half of the business it did in the U.S. It did in China on opening weekend. So China now, you take away China, and a lot of blockbusters wouldn't work. Because that's now
Right.
such a big portion of the market.
And it's shaping
Which
the movies that get made.
means to write a big blockbuster, you have to be thinking about
International
Chinese
audience.
censors from the start. Because not every film will get shown in China, depending on how you portray any event that has any sensitivities to the Chinese government.
Didn't that affect? They made a remake of, was it Red Dawn or what was that movie?
Yes, and they changed it to Cubans.
Or something. It was supposed to be Chinese
It
or
was
North
supposed to be-
Koreans or something.
Initially, it was going to be Asian antagonists, and to not mess up the Chinese sale, they changed it
Right.
to Cubans, I believe. And that's going to and studios are doing more and more. They're writing in Chinese cities into storylines. So this scene takes place in Beijing, and they're also picking up Chinese actors and actresses. And well, let's cast this role. This is a popular actress in China, so they'll get this part. And in some cases, they're doing two versions of a movie where they pick a star Chinese actor. They have a little part in the version you see in America, but they film extra footage so he has a bigger part in the Chinese version.
They should do that for evangelicals. where
Yeah,
Kirk
where-
Cameron could have a little role in every movie, but in the release to the church, he has a much bigger role,
That's brilliant.
and he shares the gospel.
That's brilliant. And there's a devotional
Right.
that comes with it. Here's
Stop
your
it,
3D glasses,
Stop
and
it.
here's your devotional.
Stop it.
So
Behave.
So I think what we're missing is how much the political sensitivities of the Chinese government are going to be affecting the blockbusters we watch in America.
Well, it's not really going to hurt us. It could probably be. It could probably help us. You know,
To be more sensitive to the Chinese?
to be more sensitive to the Chinese.
So that we know less about Tiananmen Square, or, for example, if you wanted to make a movie about Tiananmen Square,
You can't.
not only could you not, you wouldn't get a Chinese sale, obviously, but it's very likely that your studio could not release any film in China for a number of years after that.
Well, it's interesting when you think about recent blockbusters like Avengers 2, Age of Ultron. There's a scene that takes place in China in that movie. And then the Transformers movies, which are just horrible, but they do big business in China because,
Right.
I don't know, they got a thing for...
Well, it's very similar to all the other big Chinese, films. Like I forget what they're called.
Big Chinese films?
No, that the Godzilla.
Those are Japanese.
Oh, then
Yeah.
I forget with that then.
And the Chinese don't really like the Japanese. There's some hard feelings there. There's some hard feelings.
People don't understand the dynamics between Korea, China, and Japan.
No,
That-
they don't. I just think it's interesting because if you think about how, we always think of Hollywood as being this paragon of liberality.
So your point is,
They're about
all
the
of
dollars.
a sudden
My
we're
all
point
about
is
the Benjamins.
that we will say whatever we need to say to get our film to open in the second biggest. So China is now the second biggest film market in the world, and they're predicting within 10, 15 years it'll be the biggest film market in the world. And how much impact that will have on the stories that Hollywood is willing to fund has yet to be seen, but...
It goes back to what I harp on all the time with this
What?
podcast,
What's-
which is
what's this, guy?
you got to look at the economics of things. It isn't just ideological; it's economic.
You're saying you've been saying that?
Yeah, a little bit.
he says it almost every podcast.
I do, and this is a perfect example.
It is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, which kind of takes us back to television as the place where storytelling will be more risky
And culturally specific.
and culturally specific. Yes, because you don't need Game of Thrones to work in China. You don't need Orange is the New Black to work in China or House of Cards to work in China. You can make Netflix can make their money off North America. But if part of it is just the fact that we want to make more money every year than the year before, because that's, if you're a leader of a public company, that's how your performance is measured. We don't care how much money you made. Was it more than last year?
Right. You have to grow.
And was it at least 10% more than last year? Because that was our target that we gave you. And when you have to grow, especially when you're these huge companies, Disney, Time Warner, News Corp, when you're already making, $20 billion a year, saying, hey, I found an extra $2 million of revenue, that's nothing.
Yeah, but,
that does nothing.
Can I ask one question? So
Yes.
All right. So, yes, what you're saying is the virtue is we need to grow every year. We need to outdo what we did last year.
Yes, last year, but bigger.
Right. We always need. What if a CEO of one of these big countries or companies says, we just want to maintain the status quo?
He'd get fired because he would be breaching his fiduciary responsibility to the board of directors
And the stockholders.
And if the board of directors did not fire him, then the board of directors would be removed by the stockholders.
Why can't we say enough is enough?
Because if they're public companies, and there is no enough. If you're investing in a public company, the premise of that investment is the company has pledged to grow.
This is like capitalism 101.
I know, but it just seems to be sick in some sense.
Then you need to be a private company.
Have you ever
You
seen-
can do that as a private
Well,
company.
I'm talking a big umbrella like ideology. Why can't somebody just?
So here's the problem. A couple years ago, we did a podcast about that book, What to Expect When No One is Expecting.
Yes.
Is it Last, Jonathan Last or
I
something?
don't remember the
Anyway, it's
name
about
of the
population growth.
guy.
So Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
Thought you wanted to
Just
hold
think about the United States. We have
Shh, Sky, it's okay.
Keep going. Think about the United States.
so we have a growing population, particularly of baby boomers who are reaching retirement age. When they are no longer in the workforce and they are elderly, they have enormous costs.
Right.
Healthcare. How do we
Adult
afford?
diapers.
How do we afford to pay for that non-working generation? Well, those of us who are still in the workforce need to generate more revenue in order to pay for those who are now retired. And then when we exit the workforce, there needs to be a larger pool of workers behind us who are growing an economy to generate more revenue to pay.
But there won't be.
And this is the problem that we're having is China's growing demographically for now, but actually there's a bubble because of their one-child policy. The reason why Hollywood is worried about Chinese and not Europeans is because the European market is slowing down in growth. So in order to have a growing economy, you have to have a growing population. In order to pay for an aging population, you have to have a growing economy. So every corporation has to produce more, be more efficient, work more, generate more revenue, which means more taxes. Which
This
means
is exhausting.
It is exhausting,
Which means-
and it's never been done before.
Well, look at McDonald's
over
is under
time.
tremendous pressure right now, not because they're failing, but because they're not growing as fast as people hoped they would be growing right now. They're doing great. I mean, there's always a line in the drive-thru when I go there for my chocolate chip cookies.
And do you know what? In Europe,
Yeah.
they figured out how to save money. They stop hiring people, and they put in these.
And they eat them.
No, they put in these like computers where you go self-serve and order your stuff, and then there's one person at the checkout that just hands you your stuff,
I did that in Barcelona, McDonald's.
which they're going to do apparently in America.
See, and now in a world, now if you're a studio, not only do you have to think about if we do this film, this filmmaker wants to make a film that deals in an unfavorable light with this country, China, North Korea, whatever. Not only do we lose money on that film because we can't sell it into that country, but now since the interview and the North Korean hacking thing with Sony, our lawyers are telling us that we don't have enough insurance to cover any story that speaks. So we've got some of the countries whose values go against Western values the most are going to have a huge influence over our own cultural product because they're growing faster than we are.
So what you're arguing essentially is that Hollywood is going to become more and more homogenous and non-risky, and it's going to be more superhero, transforming dinosaur movies.
Yeah.
And if you really want to get interesting storytelling, go to the small screen.
Or independent films.
Right.
If you can serve an audience that okay, say for example Woody Allen. Can I point to Woody Allen as a paragon of virtue? No, I cannot. But he knows how to make a film every year and make money on it. He knows how big his audience is. And he knows that.
But he makes a proportional movie.
Yes, he does.
He doesn't make a $200 million movie.
He makes a $4 million movie, $6 million movie every year because he knows that's what his audience can afford to pay for. And then he can make another one the next year.
Which is why I produce a $1.99 devotional.
Every day.
That's right.
Which you started when you were a little kid at the Eiffel Tower, looking up and thinking, this gives me an idea for a devotional. I wonder if there's a rocket ship under my feet.
I'm pretty sure that's not what I was thinking.
You're making fun of that.
Where's another chocolate croissant around here?
No, you're making fun of that, but I do have a story about when I was 13 and I only learned the Lord's Prayer.
In French.
That's all I could remember. And then
French.
in French.
Yeah.
And
because you took French.
Yes,
I'm trying to fill in the blanks.
Thanks.
She took French. The only thing she remembers is the Lord's Prayer in French.
In French. And so when I went to France, all I was doing was saying the Lord's Prayer to people.
And people thought you were a crazy homeless person.
Yeah, they did.
Crazy homeless religious person.
Yeah.
But then I accidentally ended up in a church service in Normandy where they said the Lord's Prayer in French. And I feel like God had prepared me to be right in that moment. So don't make fun of him being lost in the Eiffel Tower and having
I don't think I
an
learned
epiphany.
anything practical when I was there.
Well, you never know.
You don't know that. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, France, movies, China.
We're going global.
It's the end of Western civilization as we know it. Can I just say that? Because if we can't make a bold statement of American values in our movies. Think about James Cagney singing "I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy" and dancing around. Think of all those pro-America movies of the 40s.
Gone. We
gone
could go
'cause
to
they won't sell
Normandy.
it. It's not will it
This
play
is-
in Peoria, it's will it play in Peking.
We could go to
Peking.
Normandy and make American
Beijing.
movies, and they would love it.
Whatever. Well, this is
Doesn't start with a P.
This is globalization.
It is globalization.
Is it?
It's globalization.
Well, but it's not just. Yeah, it is globalization.
and when you're globalized,
But
it's
it's-
who's the biggest market, and that's who you
who's
placate
the
to.
growing market?
Right.
Who is the growing market?
Are you saying this is all bad? Or are you just commenting that this is the way it is?
Which parts?
Any of it?
Well, when you buy a new Bible and the Lord's Prayer is in Mandarin, then you're going to know that it's gone too far.
When your commentary on the book of Galatians doesn't mention Tiananmen Square even once, you know they've sold out.
So basically, you're just saying that we are compromising.
We are sacrificing our own values so that we can make money. I guess that's pretty
But
American.
that is our values. I think we're perfectly living
That's
out our
very
values.
American.
actually.
Wow. So I guess nothing's changed. nothing new to report about here. But Hollywood is so, kind of proud of, we don't let anybody tell us what to do. We're mavericks. We're Hollywood.
No.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's all smoke and mirrors.
Well, there's that ongoing
it's
debate. It's a
corporate.
chicken and egg
It's
debate.
corporate.
Does Hollywood create the culture or does Hollywood reflect the
Right.
culture? And you can make a case either way, but in a lot of ways, it reflects the culture and
you
where
know-
the money is.
Do you know partly why? This is an interesting
I know
story.
partly a lot of things.
yeah.
Do you know
Fully few
why
things.
Same as
Hollywood
Phil.
made so many pro-America movies in the 40s?
To raise patriotism.
Why would they want to do that?
Because the more
World War II.
patriotic, the better.
Did someone pay them to do it?
Well, the country was
No,
in a
it was to
mood
encourage the troops.
And going into the 50s? Okay,
of Cold War.
so all of the major studios, except one, were founded by
Jewish people.
Immigrants.
Eastern European Jewish immigrants.
Right.
Yeah.
So people that were...
Which one was not?
Disney.
Of course.
Disney. Walt.
Yeah.
He was a son of a Congregationalist minister from Chicago.
That sounds like an insult.
You son of a Congregationalist minister from Chicago who helped build the Columbia Exposition, the World's Fair, as a carpenter, because he was an unsuccessful... He wasn't a minister, he was an elder in his Congregationalist church, but that's beside the point. All the other ones were founded by Eastern European Jewish immigrants, which
Right.
is important. It was important that they were Eastern European, not Western European
Yep.
Jewish immigrants, because Western European Jewish immigrants were more respected and tended to have higher class jobs, tended to be lawyers and doctors and such, were more educated. Eastern European Jewish immigrants tended to be more entertainers. It was more vaudeville,
Right.
and they weren't allowed into most professions. Couldn't join country clubs, couldn't do any of this stuff, but they were willing to get into the industries that the upper class, the respectable folks in America, wouldn't touch, and so that led to theater, burlesque, vaudeville, and then eventually these
Film.
little movie reels.
Right.
That were called Nickelodeons.
So this led to the Red Scare.
So what happened was when they started moving to Hollywood, do you know why they moved to Hollywood from New York? Because initially they were all in New York.
Because they like the warm weather.
No, they moved to Hollywood to get away from Thomas Edison. Because Thomas Edison held a patent on movie making, not just movie projectors and movie cameras. He claimed he had a patent on making films. And so if you made a movie, you were supposed to pay him a certain amount of money for every foot of film you ran through a camera. And that drove the early producers crazy. They didn't want to pay, this money. So Thomas Edison hired guys to walk the streets of New York looking for people making movies. And if they didn't have the certificate saying they'd paid the money, they were supposed to break their cameras.
So
Nice.
that's where Chicago gets the film permit policy.
And that was the Edison Trust. The Edison Trust prevented anyone from making a motion picture without paying Thomas Edison money.
He was kind of a
I
crotchety
had
guy, wasn't
no
he?
idea.
So the first guy, first Jewish producer said, enough of this. His name was Paul Grape. He said, enough of this. I'm getting out of here. He moved out west as far as he could get from Thomas Edison and the Thomas Edison thugs. Moved to Los Angeles, and then he wrote back and said, not only are there no Thomas Edison thugs out here, but
the
the
weather.
weather is amazing, and we can shoot westerns.
Yeah, I thought it was, from what I read in Hollywood, it was the weather that brought them out there.
So that led all of the early Jewish producers to move west, and basically create their own world. The biggest fear among the early Jewish producers, all the head Adolf Zucker and all these guys, the Warner Brothers, all these guys that started these companies, Harry Kahn, was that at some point, because they had built, it was working, it was actually working. The movies had become big business and they were remaking themselves. The big fear was at some point, America is going to notice how successful we have become and they're going to take this away from us. That they will turn on us and say, you know what, you're not American. You're not Americans. You're foreigners, and we want that. And so when World War II came around, the other thing that happened is when they needed writers, they started hiring writers back from New York and having them move out, and they were theater writers. They were largely Jewish theater writers. Jewish theater writers in New York in the 1930s were heavily influenced by the Russian Revolution.
Right.
So many of them were communist sympathizers. So when McCarthy started going after writers in Hollywood and Hollywood filmmakers, there actually was truth to that, that a lot of them were members of the Communist Party because many Jewish intellectuals were in the 1930s.
Where did you get all this?
The History of Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
Written by the same guy, Neil Gabler. Really good book. And so the Jewish heads of the Hollywood studios said, yikes, we in fact are employing communists, and now that's become a very unpopular thing. We have to prove how American we are.
Which is also why Christian is wearing a scarf that is an American flag.
To prove that she's not a communist?
She's throwing the commie haters off of her scent.
Right. So the Jewish studio heads basically fell all over themselves to be patriotic and to make these really jingoistic pro-America, pro-the American way, and a lot of that sense of when we think of ourselves as Americans and how patriotic we are, it comes from the movies of the 30s and 40s that were made by Jewish immigrants who were trying to show how American they were, so they wouldn't be seen as Jewish, they'd be seen first as American. Then the big fear was, though, once the bankers out east, once the bankers, you know, the real Americans, the ones that we've envied all these years,
the Ivy League
like
wasps.
Rockefeller.
Yes, once they see how much money we're making, they're going to want to take this from us. And within one generation, every one of those studios had been bought by a big, you know, what they looked at it as a big Protestant investor. And
that's
all
the American way.
Yeah. So Coca-Cola, Charlie Bluehorn bought Paramount, and the whole generation disappeared, and it became corporate. And once it became corporate, because those early guys, the early Jewish guys, they would go to bat for an idea, you know, because they were showmen. That's what they were about. It's like let's tell the story. Let's put on the show, and suddenly it became about, hey, there's a good return on investment.
But that's true of every new business. It starts with some innovator, some pure idealist, and then it grows.
Not every business is about story,
and it's successful. But it is about
nobody cares if there's a dustpan without good values.
Well, you know what?
That's true. Nobody does care about that.
To our little world of evangelicalism, there were a lot of very innovative Christian leaders in the mid 20th century who started really amazing ministries.
Yeah.
And they had a vision and a focus and a determination of we're going to do X, whatever it is. And those ministries are still around, and now they're led by second or third generation people. And a lot of them are thinking not, how do we keep the purity of that original vision alive? It's how do we just keep this organization going?
How do we pay the bills?
How do we pay the bills? Which leads them to all kinds of things which are not in line with the original vision. So it's success lends itself to this kind of delusion, not delusion, dilution of purity of vision. So it happened in Hollywood studios too.
You know what this makes me want to do?
Cry.
It makes me want to go back to Normandy.
I knew she was going to say that.
Well, it's true because you know what they did? The whole time I was there, they had speakers in every town playing all the tunes from the 1940s.
Yeah, but do they do that in like March?
No, they do it for these. No, they do it for these 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But
I think Normandy should become a 1940s American-themed theme park.
I agree. I'd love that.
Year-round.
This scarf, I didn't get to finish my story about this scarf. This scarf was given to me by Danny, who in 1944 her mother made this dress out of a parachute, or made a dress out of
Right,
a
you
parachute.
said that.
Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to tell her thank you on the podcast.
Did she listen to the podcast?
She
she a
she does
podcast?
now. She's going to be now.
Thanks,
And
Dana.
practice her.
Thanks for listening for the podcast.
Thank you for my scarf.
I was actually going to talk about same-sex marriage.
Well, I'm sure our audience is glad you didn't.
Well, the Supreme Court ruling hasn't happened yet.
No, it
So
hasn't happened.
It might
yet.
happen in the next week.
But it was an interesting week with some Christian leaders taking positions on gay
Yes.
marriage, which is worth. We'll talk about that next week.
Okay.
Hey America, do you like dinosaurs? Or do corporate movies make you snore? You gotta make them so they'll play in Singapore and China too.
Wow, that was good.
Thank you. And do you remember when Hollywood would make the movies that they really thought they could and not have to worry about if the money was good? Just the story too, 'cause most of them were Jews, except Walt Disney, who was a big influence on my early life, but that's not really relevant.
Okay. Bye, everybody.